Out here in the fields, I fight for my meals. I get my back into my living. Hey, and my living is teaching guys sports psych. Yay! So I am out in the fields today. So we will continue on with Chapter 7 on psychological skills training. And the big thing that I want to do in this segment is talk about cognitive control strategies. The three major ones are thought stoppage, countering, and reframing. Okay. In addition to that, we have what's known as the COPE strategy for dealing with acute stressors. So we'll be talking about those today in this next little segment. All right, so we're continuing on with the idea of, how do you deal with arousal slash anxiety in a sports situation. Okay, so, part of that are your thoughts. So your thoughts can lead to anxiety. Again, we talked about cognitive anxiety back in Chapter 6. Okay, so some of the things that you can do to prevent negative thoughts really running away with you is these three cognitive control strategies. Okay, the first one, thought stoppage, pretty much what it sounds like. If you have these negative, anxious, anxiety-producing thoughts in your head, they will continue to increase and increase if you do not stop them. Okay, so that's this whole idea of thought stoppage. What you want to do is prevent those negative thoughts from, cycling downward and downward and downward, affecting your performance, affecting your emotional level. So you simply do something like yell stop to yourself. So again, since I'm in the middle of a cornfield, I can yell, stop! All right. So that would stop these negative thoughts that are, racing through your heads. Okay. Obviously, not everybody's going to be in the middle of the cornfield, especially when you're in the middle of competition. You may not want to yell stop, at the top of your lungs. Okay. So what you can do is imagine yourself doing that. Okay. So, you could even use this video as your example. If you just imagine me or you yelling stop at the top of your lungs, that will stop these negative thoughts from happening. If you start thinking to yourself, oh, the game's slipping away from me, I suck, I don't know, the other team's, really starting to hit my pitches, okay, I'm not shooting well. If all these negative thoughts start building up, you aren't going to perform well. So, and they will continue. So what you do is, again, try to stop those thoughts. And yelling stop to yourself is a wonderful way of doing that. Okay? All right. So obviously you don't have to do that. Like I said, you can yell, you can just say stop to yourself a little gentler. Okay? And actually the other really gentle way of doing that is just to say to yourself, oops. Okay, bad thought, oops. Okay, so we'll again, start, changing that negative train of bad thoughts and changing them into positive thoughts. Right, so thought stoppage is one. There is also a physical version of this. I hope I can do this while Hazel is still pulling on me. Okay, so I do have Hazel with me today. You can have a rubber band around your wrist. Okay, so what you can do is just take that rubber band and just snap it, again, not to hurt yourself, but doing some physical motion like, oh, I'm having terrible time, in terms of, I'm not shooting well, or I'm not defending well, or things are going wrong. Just take a rubber band, snap it, and it's like, okay, I'll snap out of it almost, right? Okay, so you use some physical way of doing thought stoppage too. All right, so that's thought stoppage. Okay, stop those negative thoughts, those anxious, anxiety-producing thoughts from increasing. Okay, countering, number 2 in terms of cognitive control strategies. Okay, you take negative thoughts that you're having and basically have a debate with yourself. Okay, so if you think, oh, again, a thought like I suck. It's like, no, you don't suck. You have been prepping for this. You've been practicing for this. Okay, you do not suck. Okay, things may not be going on right now, but going well right now, but you are going to get better if you concentrate. Okay, so again, countering is basically having this debate with yourself. Another one example in the book is, oh, the refs suck. Okay, and that's something you have no control over. So you counteract that in your head with a positive thought. Again, debate with yourself. It's like, all right, that was a bad call. I know that. but the refs don't determine the game, okay? I am going to be in control. Or the refs, again, you can't count on the refs. You have to do what you can have control over, okay? So you replace these negative thoughts with positive thoughts, right? There's a number of other examples in the book, too, and actually, I think I have a couple in the sportsmanship book chapter that I'm assigning as well, okay? Third thing, okay, reframing. That is, you take that, it's very subtly different from countering, I'll admit that, but basically you're taking the same information that you have available to you, but you turn it to your advantage. All right, so, classic example of this from cognitive psychology is the idea of how you buy ground beef, okay? When you buy ground beef in a store, assuming that you're getting to a store these days, okay, you have an option of buying 80% lean, 90% lean, 93% lean, okay? That's how people will really want to buy their beef. What's the other way of saying this is it could be 20% fat. Your 80% lean beef is 20% fat. Ooh, yum, right? Okay, so, you don't see it advertised that way. You don't see it labeled that way. But both are the same thing, right? 80% lean equals 20% fat. Same thing if you have something like this situation. Say you're a relief pitcher and a batter comes up that is hitting really well against you. Maybe from the coaches that that the person is hitting 400 against you. Well, 400 sounds like, wow, that's a great batting average, right? That guy really owns me. Well, what does that also mean? It means the odds are still in your favor that you're going to get him or her out, okay? 400 means that you get him out 6 times out of 10. He only gets a hit 4 times out of 10. And 400 is a really, pretty good batting average. Even if you say if it's 300 batting average, you get him out 7 times out of 10, okay? So the odds are still in your favor. It's the same information, but you take that information and you put it to your advantage, okay? So same thing in terms of physiological arousal. If you feel like, oh my God, I'm so nervous, so nervous, well, you take that information and say, no, I'm not. What I'm sensing is physiological arousal, okay? And what that means is, hey, these butterflies in my stomach mean I am prepared. I'm aroused. I am ready to do this. I'm taking this physiological information and say, yeah, I'm ready to go. Boom. If I wasn't, physiologically aroused, it means that I'm not, prepared. I don't care. Okay. Again, you're basically saying, hey, I'm at that peak of arousal in terms of the Yerkes Dodson law. Okay, so those are the 3 major types of cognitive control strategies. The other specific one that I've mentioned, again, talk about mostly in terms of, that's in terms of the sportsmanship chapter, which I'm assigning also, is the idea of the cope strategy. Okay, we are on the move. Okay, so Hazel wants to go home. She says, enough lecture. Okay, just a couple more. Okay, COPE strategy is an acronym for how you deal with acute stressors. The acute stressors would be things like bad calls in a game, something that occurs, very severely and unexpectedly. Okay, so bad calls, heckling, a bad play on your part, your coach criticizes you and yells at you. Okay, all these things could be considered acute stressors. So how do you deal with those acute stressors? Again, they're stressors because they are going to give you a certain level of stress, and they are going to be anxiety producing. All right, so what does COPE stand for? COPE stands for C, control your emotions, both cognitively and physiologically. When that happens, you're going to get a surge of physiological activity, just like we were talking about in Chapter 6. Heart rate is going to increase. Breathing rate is going to increase. Okay, so what you want to do is just step back and take a breath. I know it sounds sort of cliche, but take a deep breath and get your physiological mechanisms under control. Get them back down to baseline levels. All right. So start thinking, okay, let's, not think about this right now. Don't worry about what the refs just did. All right. So you want to at least control your emotions first. Okay. The O stands for organize input. Decide what's important. Okay. So you can use some of these cognitive control strategies at this point. Say, hey, the refs made a bad call. Okay. It's over and done with. I don't have control over that. Okay. You talk to yourself. You do a certain amount of self-talk. You say, okay, am I, going to get my head back into the game? Okay. The P, therefore, stands for plan your next step. Okay. So what you want to do is get back into the game. Okay. Think what you're going to do next. So say if it is a bad call, and let's say you're a pitcher. Okay, we'll use this example in a second. What you do is get back on the mound, and you talk over with the catcher what's going to be, how you're going to approach the next batter. Okay, and then the E is to execute that step. So as soon as you can. Right? So at that point, you get back on the mound. You then pitch to the next batter, and with your head back in the game. You're not worrying about what happened. Again, some people refer to that as the rear view mirror stuff. Don't worry what happened. You just get back. You have no control over that. You then get back into the game and do the next step. All right. So I have a couple of examples of that in the chapter on sportsmanship. One of these is when Jamie Moyer was pitching in the World Series with the Phillies. It was Game 3. And he was pitching a 2-hitter going into the 7th inning. Phillies were up 4-1. When Carl Crawford hit a bunt down the first base line, Moyer, who was actually his first name in those days was 45-year-old Jamie Moyer, because everybody was persevering over his age, dove for the ball, flipped it to Ryan Howard, and actually the toss beat Crawford at first, except the umpire called him safe. Okay, so again, stressful period in the World Series. The highest level of competition there is in terms of baseball. Jamie Moyer was actually just laying there on the ground. He had a very good look at what was going on, so he knew Crawford was out, even though the umpire called him safe. So what did he do? Did he yell and scream at the ump? No, actually let the manager do that. But he got back on the mound, okay, organized his input, okay, planned the next step with the catcher, and then started pitching to the next batter. Okay, so and you could, not that I've talked to Jamie Moyer about this, but you can almost see how that would have happened in this particular case. Right? If this was easy, everybody would do it, right? Okay, so again, sometimes that doesn't happen. The example of Serena Williams in the 2009 U.S. Open, okay, a classic example of this, where she famously had the double fault and started screaming at the line referee. Okay. Right. Okay, lots of activity here. Okay, so there's dog going by, talking to our dogs. Yes, there we go. Hazel, there we go. Say bye, doggies. Okay, take care. All right, come on, guys. All right. So, what she could have done is, again, the scope strategy. Obviously, it's not easy to do. It takes training, it takes practice, and that's something that we'll talk about in the imagery part of this chapter as well. Okay, so I'll put those links to those. Well, the Moyer situation isn't online anywhere, but I've got a couple of examples in the book, and I'll provide you the links to those situations as well. All right, so that's part 2 of chapter 7, and part 3 is going to be about imagery, so we'll do that a little bit later today probably. All right, take care, guys. Stay safe, stay warm, and stay sane. And remember, okay, don't cry, don't raise your eye. It's only Oswego Sports Psych. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.